what really drives you at this point and motivates you to keep doing all of these things?
I want to live for a long time.
Hey, Autumn Athletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to talk with Sue DiPiano and find out what makes her an Autumn Athlete that's not done yet. Before we get started, please remember, if you enjoy our content, like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications. Okay, let's get started here. Sue, thanks so much for joining us. Why don't you start us off with a little introduction of yourself?
Thanks, Larry. So, as he said, my name is Sue DiPiano. I will be 71 in September, and I am a single mom of 4 kids, and I am a retired school counselor. However, I started out in physical education and health. I like to say I'm from New Melly, Missouri, which is in St. Charles County, although my address is Forestell, Missouri.
Okay, well, great to meet you, Sue. Why don't you fill us in a little bit on your athletic history?
Okay, the earliest I can remember about my athletic history is my dad putting a basketball goal in our basement when I was about 3 or 4 years old. So at that time, I got hooked on basketball. And of course, I was born in the 50s when girls did not do a whole lot other than play with the boys. So I did a lot of sports with the boys. I did elementary school, and it'd be great when the guys would come up and say they needed a shortstop for the baseball team for the afternoon game. So that was kind of like elementary years, just watching my brothers play in organized sports. And then when I got to junior high, by 9th grade, girls were starting to do a little bit more. So I was always on the basketball team, the softball team, whatever team I could get my feet into, that's what I would do. And then high school, here we are, we're coming along a little bit more. So I played every sport I could. Of course, basketball, softball, I learned how to play field hockey, tennis, the whole 9 yards. And then by the time I got to college, I went to a small school in 1972 and 73. And so their program was not very developed yet. And I realized that and of course I was a PE major. So I realized if I really wanted to get into women's sports, I needed to transfer. So I transferred to Southwest Missouri State University in Southern Missouri. I actually played field hockey, basketball, and track on the varsity level in those years. By my senior year, Title IX was in full swing, and so I was given scholarships for all 3 sports. I can't say that I was the best player, but I think they thought they needed to honor the women who were coming up from behind. So I actually we won state championships in field hockey. We won state championships in basketball. I was actually the state champion in the javelin throw because I did not make the softball team. So I still wanted to do a sport and I threw the javelin. And then after that, I coached, but I kept on playing things. I learned how to play racquetball and I was just enamored with racquetball and I loved the sport. And I did that for many, many, many years. I got into running. I could usually place in my age group. I wasn't the fastest runner, but I had a lot of endurance, so I never quit. And then as I got married, had kids, you had to kind of prioritize a little bit, but racquetball and running stayed with me for a really long time. And now, as I've retired and really got into cycling is like my number one thing that I do. My sister convinced me to do triathlons when I was in my 60s, and we're still doing those, but cycling really has my heart. I even got into the pickleball craze, so I can't get the competitiveness out of me as much as I want that competitiveness out of me and just enjoy everything. I always have to challenge myself to do the best I can. Not necessarily to beat somebody, even though I really want to, but just do the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I am.
Did you have any physical setbacks along the way that maybe interrupted your flow of athletics?
Yes, I did. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had basically a football clipping injury playing softball, and I tore my medial collateral ligament, which put me out of commission for most of that summer, but it never stopped me. I guess I had a really good surgeon. I, just recovered from that, was able to still run and everything. In 2005, I had a very serious horse accident. We actually own horses and I ride horses a lot, which resulted in me fracturing both hip sockets. And I was in a wheelchair for 8 weeks. And I tell everybody that I think that God just told me I needed to sleep. So I was in the wheelchair for 8 weeks. And after that, bones heal and up and running I go again. In 2015, I actually had another horse accident, which broke my humerus completely off the socket. So I'm sidelined again. In 1995, I ruptured my Achilles. And that really scared me because I was really afraid that I would not be able to do anything after that. But I healed. So I kept going and I don't let physical setbacks affect me. At my age, I get sore. I have stiff knees every once in a while, but right now I can keep moving and that's what I'm going to do.
All right. So you did mention earlier about one or two of your personal best achievements, but you've done a lot of different sports and you've had some great success. So before we dig in further again to your cycling, why don't you give us a little outline of some of your personal best achievements in your various activities?
So like I said, in college, we were state champions in a number of years. Racquetball really had me going strong for about 30 years. So I was actually a sponsored racquetball player by Head Sports and did a lot of tournaments. I won state championship quite a number of times. I played on the national level. I got written up in the racquetball magazine. I guess if you make so many points in a tournament, you're ranked nationally. So I happened to be ranked nationally in racquetball for a while. I won the National Seniors Masters, which is 35 and over, women's racquetball tournament when I was 39 and 40. And then things just, they kind of slow down a little bit and you just keep doing the best you can. And now I tell people I don't consider myself a triathlete, but when you're old like me and you're the only one in your age group, I'll get to stand on the podium for finishing the race. So that's kind of how it is.
Okay, so you're doing some triathlons, and then you said earlier that cycling is your main thing. So tell us about that. What are the activities you've done in cycling? What particular races, those types of things? And then also, are you gearing up for anything in particular coming up in the near future?
All my life I've ridden a bike, but I really got interested in it, especially when it was very difficult for me to run anymore. So I got in that. I always knew about RAGBRAI, which is the bike across Iowa every summer. Always knew about it, but it never kind of coincided with our family activities. But one year it did. And so naturally, I did my first RAGBRAI on a hybrid bike. I rode 100 miles that week, 575 miles total, and I was hooked. So I'm realizing that if I want to continue with all this, it's not always what kind of shape you're in, but the bike does make a difference. So I've upgrading my bike a number of times now. I'm comfortable with what I'm using now, but I've never raced in a bicycle race. I've always done the week-long bicycle things. I think what keeps me going is just the sheer enjoyment of being outside and riding. Yes, I do try to go as fast as I can down a hill. I'm slow as a snail going up, but the downhill is always awesome. I think my highest miles per hour downhill has been about 55 miles per hour. So it's like I have the need for speed, even though I don't need to do that. It's just there. I want to say one of my greatest accomplishments in cycling was about a year and a half ago, September through November of 2022. I actually did Adventure Cycling Southern Tier, which is the bike across the USA, the southern portion. So we went through California, Arizona, New Mexico, Louisiana, Mississippi, all the way from San Diego to St. Augustine, Florida. 60 days, 52 days riding. The most we rode in a row was 12 days, but I was with the most incredible group of people. We did it van supported, which we don't have to carry our own gear, but we were expected to ride every route they gave us, get from point A to point B, and do our own repairs, things like that. My goal was to not have a flat tire the whole 3,000 plus miles, and I did not have a flat tire.
Very good.
Yeah, and then since then, I do about 4 or 5 week-long tours a year. I would really like to do some more self-supported where I do carry my own gear and do camp along the way. And there was a few of us that did the Allegheny Passage and the C&O Trail last fall, and we carried our own gear, but we still stayed in like hotels and B&Bs. So I want to get to the point where I can do it all on my own. So that's the challenge for myself. But really, it's just the fact that I keep going. I don't stop. I love to camp. I love to float rivers and anything outdoors, and especially if it's with family. And of course, like I said, I have horses, so we do that too.
Tell us a little more about the details of this cross-country trip.
Yeah, of course, because I would do it again in a heartbeat. So we met in San Diego, and we started from there. And our first day was about 70 miles, and it was probably about 7,000 feet of climb. And we had a certain distance every day that we were to do. Most of the time we spent in our tents, but every 7 days or so, we would get a day off where we would get to sleep in a hotel or, you know, something inside. Our average was probably 60 miles a day, but it could have been anywhere from 40 up to 80 something. The first part was a lot of climb because we're climbing out of San Diego, we're going through the mountains, you know, but it was incredible. And the people that we were with, we were from all over. None of us knew each other beforehand. And we just gelled really quickly and really well. We had shared cooking responsibilities. So if you and your partner were in charge of the evening meal and breakfast the next morning, you would do the shopping or give the list to the van driver, and we would do all that. And it was really great because all of us wanted to continue eating healthy. So we would cook healthy meals, and it got to the point where sometimes we didn't want to eat out because we couldn't get anything healthy eating out. So it worked out well. And the places the places we went to or we rode through, you never see from the highway or the car. So, I mean, I saw parts of America that were just incredible. You know, the hill country of Texas. We went through in New Mexico, we went through the Hatch area where the very spicy whatever peppers or whatever. And you know, saw just all kinds of animals, and I picked up a rattlesnake skin, you know. So it was really something. And we had bad weather. You know, I mean, one day I was out there, the wind's blowing probably 40 miles an hour, and I took a picture of just the wind and listening to it. I got blown off the road twice because of the wind. So but, you know, dipping your back tire in San Diego and putting your front tire in the Atlantic Ocean, it was just incredible.
The cycling obviously is the main thing that you're doing. Do you just train for that by cycling, or do you do some kind of cross training, you know, gym exercises, those types of things? Fill us in on that, your training regimen, especially if you're gearing up for one of these longer races.
The more time on the bike saddle, the better. But I realize that I do need to work different muscles in my body too. So I take stretch classes at the Y, I take core classes, I play pickleball, which is really good, you know, activity just for your legs. So, but the more I can be on my bike, the better. And it's not necessarily how many days I ride, but how many miles in those days. Like, I have a friend that I got started doing centuries a few years ago. And so it's built up now that we are planning to do 24 centuries in 2024. Last year I did 20, and which was not a problem at all. So I think muscle memory has a lot to do with it, because a couple weeks ago I did 1 century, waited a week and did another one and didn't ride in between, and I was fine. So yeah. It's just a kind of a continuous thing. But as far as real hard training, like I've done the burn boot camps and things like that, which are fine. But as far as hard training, I can't say that I really do that, but I do something every day. And I do yoga quite a bit, which is hard because being in child's pose for 5 minutes is kind of tough, but I know I need to do it.
Tell us a little bit about your approach to diet and nutrition.
So I learned a few years ago that it's not all about just calories in and calories out. I'm kind of tall, so I never look real heavy, but it's kind of like, it's your own perspective, how you feel. And a while back, I was way heavier than I really wanted to be. And so I actually went to a CrossFit center and got hooked up with a nutritionist and learned a lot about that. It's called Healthy Steps Nutrition. And, you know, I was in a program for that. And any kind of weight loss program that I do, I will be successful. It's keeping it successful though. So I really got serious about a year ago and started cutting out gluten and dairy for the most part. I don't completely cut them out, but it really made a difference. I got a plant-based protein, high protein cookbook that I use a lot of the recipes for. And realize there are foods that are inflammatory, and I kind of need to stay away from those if I want my body to function properly. And water is a real important thing. And, you know, I'll do a mini commercial for Kangen water because I have a Kangen water filter system that I think is really making a big difference. And that's just the right kind of pH. It's ionized, alkalized. There's a whole lot of things you can do with it. So I think that makes a big difference also. And I like ice cream as much as anybody. And I like the junk food and the chocolate, but there's got to be a balance.
What really drives you at this point and motivates you to keep doing all of these things?
I want to live for a long time. And I think what I'm doing is the right thing, but I've kind of always been a self-motivator. I don't need encouragement is great, but I don't need a lot of encouragement to do something. You know, if you throw out a challenge, I'm there. You know, it just, or tell me I can't do something, watch out. Because, you know, for some, I just, you know, it's like the Nike commercial, just do it. And that's kind of how I've lived my life. If you want to do something, you know, if you want to lose weight, don't complain about it, do it. If you want to run a marathon, train for it, do it.
All right, so you do have a long history of athletics and you've had injuries and comebacks and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything that you would have done differently if you could go back and change it?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I don't know if I would have done, I would have always done what I did, probably. So I can't say I would have done anything differently. If it had been another era, I probably could have become a pro racquetball player, but my racquetball was happening when I'm raising a family, and you know, so that didn't happen. But I don't know if I would have done anything differently.
If you could take what I like to call your secret sauce, if you could take that secret sauce that's making you so successful and bottle it, what would the ingredients to that secret sauce be?
Never give up. Never give up. And one of my favorite sayings is, I do it because I can, and I can because I do it. If you really want to do something, if you need help, get help. You want to do it on your own, do it on your own. But just push forward, push through.
We're going to do a little lightning round of some fun questions here just to find out a little bit about you.
Okay.
Simple stuff like, let's start off with, what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Do you listen to music while you're riding your bike or exercising?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I will sing in my head. I will pray in my head. I used to study while I was out running in my head. So no.
Okay. All right.
I like to be aware of my surroundings.
Okay, so I'll adjust that question. So what's your favorite song to sing in your head?
Oh, that's hard to say. I do listen to contemporary Christian music, but some of the oldies pop in every once in a while. And when I was doing Ragbri, I'd always sing the Rawhide song, you know.
So if you have a little bit of downtime, Would you prefer to watch a movie, read a book, or listen to a podcast?
Probably right now, read a book. I read a lot of Christian fiction, but I also read the series called The Rosie Project, and I highly recommend that one.
You got to do one of these. You got to skydive, bungee jump, or scuba dive.
Oh, I do all three.
Have you done any of those?
And I've scuba dived. I was an open water scuba diver.
Opera, Broadway musical, or play?
Broadway musical.
Do you have a favorite of one of those?
Probably South Pacific.
Sue, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to let us know what makes you an autumn athlete that's not done yet. I'd like to finish up here by giving you the floor to just give us some of your final thoughts.
Thanks, Larry. My final thought is really, it's like move it or lose it. Just get out there and move. Motion is lotion. So whatever you wanted to do as a kid, go out and do it now.
Well, there you go, folks. Great advice from Sue DiPiano. She is definitely an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Remember, keep moving, set your own goals, and train hard to achieve them. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.